Joe Abdullah, John, Greg, James, Alex, Justin, Jen, I'm here, Mike, Julie, Peter, and Mary.
Public comment on agenda items. Is there anyone from the general public that would like to address the board on something on this evening's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there anyone that has anything on the consent agenda that they would like to take off? These are the minutes of the board meeting and the retreat, September 9th, September 16th. Had he been there, he would have known that. Okay, with that amendment, those will be passed. All right, reports and recognition. It is truly amazing how well everything's worked considering we're in a construction zone. I've been here frequently. I've seen everyone, staff and students, negotiating the trip from the parking lot in here. It's been a very good, safe, and excellent start to the school year. And I'll leave most of my comments for the report on the condition of the construction project. But right now we are moving up and away. Megan?
All right, good evening, everyone. Just some updates that we have. At first, I want to start with a very special and heartfelt thank you to our Washington volunteer firefighters. The fire walks that they did in order to make certain, as we were testing our systems and making certain that everything was functioning and our systems aligned up, and to know that they were doing fire walks and kept our children safe, they are the reason we were able to open. And so I want to make certain that I echo our appreciation loud and proud. Additionally, in the terms of celebrations, the next generation science test came out, and we are quite proud of the results. We're looking forward to when we are going to share and showcase. But I think what you see is the trending for all of our standardized test scores were in the positive, and I think that is a testament to our staff, our administrators, and what can be done when focus happens. So I'm immensely proud. I do want to bring to people's attention, I know what has been in the newspapers as far as Triple E and the concerns with mosquitoes out. I have talked to Matt Parachi, and we know that we're working with a lot of the other towns, and our games do end and things close up at 6 o'clock. Our late buses roll at 5:15, so we are certainly considering all of those things. We know that we have the one game that we perform under lights, which is our homecoming. As of right now, Don has reached out to the New Milford Health Agency to find out, but please know that is something we're considering. But as for right now, there is no change. We have been within compliance and regulations for what our health recommendations that have been given to other towns. So we have not been given anything directly here in our town. So I just wanted to make certain I mentioned that publicly. But speaking of our athletics, our senior cross country team member, Isabel Eddy, has been registered first place finishes in the team races at the Northwestern Regional, Litchfield, Wamogo, and Gilbert. So I kudos to Isabel and her speed. We've had a couple of sports related injuries that I do want to let people know. And again, a testament to Matt Parachi and the coaches, because they are following very closely that concussion protocol and making certain that not only when students are cleared to return, we still make certain that everyone knows the seriousness of concussions. If we even suspect something is happening with the student, they are removed from the field. So right now, I'm proud to say the care that has been given to our students. And again, it's one in which Matt has been working with all of our coaches. Um, Another thing to bring up is that we did have a very nice ribbon at the Big E for the floral arrangements from some of our agri-science students. So they're already collecting some of the recognition. I can tell you if you went to the Big E, good luck finding it because they did not list Chippewa. So it was a thank you to Sue, who identified and found where our students were. And it's because she knows our students so intimately, she knew the name of the child. So if that takes some scouring, but again, it was really nice and nice that we can identify it next to a big giant ribbon. I also want to let you know that on October 9th and 10th, our administrative team will be working with the International Center for Leadership and Education. Our big focus for educating our students is going to be about those learning quadrants and how do we create higher level questioning within our classrooms. And one of the things that we want to take a very conscious look at and make certain that we're preparing our administrators is that they are the lead learners in the building. We want to give them a running head start as then we will roll this out to staff, but we want to make certain they can help provide the guidance, support, and as we are working with what we value, we can only know what we value as we learn it, have clear expectations, and provide those expectations with the staff. So that is in progress, but please know we'll continue those learning walks, and we are going to be having some action plans at each one of the schools to say how are we doing along that continuum. Currently, Chippewa is reviewing our students' cell phone use at the middle school level. Right now, we're having the conversations of what do you really need and where can they really go. So to say it's a bold conversation because it has become part and parcel to our students' being. And I think sometimes parents can also get very nervous when we start to put limitations on use. So this is really my way of saying we're starting the conversation. We're recognizing when it's a distraction. And they're probably going to corner you in the market to have this conversation. But it is one in which we're doing it with sensitivity and trying to make certain people recognize why do we need cell phones in school. And if it's a distraction, then it should be put away. So that's my warning to everyone. Additionally, we have breakfast is going on a cart in Chippewa. We are going mobile. In an attempt to increase some of those breakfast sales, we are making certain that breakfast is going towards the children. We are noticing that when they had to make a detour to the cafeteria, they weren't doing it, but certainly looking for snacks throughout the day. And because now we are making certain that the cafeteria is closed at different times, we want to make certain we are providing the needs and we are making certain that those needs are more convenient for the students. So that has been happening. I also want to let you know bus circle conversations. Nicole, do you like talking about buses anymore or are you done? No. Okay. I'll go. But right now we are making a message to our parents that they should not be in the bus circle during times in which students are being dismissed. More importantly, no one should pass a bus when the stop sign is out and the blinkers are going on. We have a number of photographs that have been taken from bus drivers because people who have been violating that. So we will put out that reminder. And I understand sometimes it can take that extra minute, but our children's safety is worth that. And if you don't want to have that extra minute, park in a parking spot and we don't have to worry about those things. We've designed the loops so that way if people are parked in the designated areas, it's in and out very quickly. So we will be reinforcing that. We are going to make certain that people are knowing. And again, it's not about trying to inconvenience parents. It's about safety of our children, and that will always win. So other things that we have going on, a couple of appointments that we have. We have Neil Chen, who will be the literacy tutor at Burnham School. We have Mary Erin Clem, who will be the literacy tutor at Booth Free School. Luckily not in the same schools because those last names are too close. We have Rachel Genoa, who will be the JV field hockey coach at Chippewa. And we have Amanda Tuthill, who is the varsity field hockey coach for Chippewa Valley. I did mention the resignation of Elizabeth Horton at the last meeting. However, we wanted to make certain that it was sitting on the agenda. So there she is. And I know she's off and doing well at her new school in her new classroom. So, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to go on to new business and updates, and we're going to start with an agri-science presentation of new students. I'd like to introduce Peter Lawler.
Good evening. You can bear with me for just one moment while I get the computer set up. I'm Peter Lawler. I am one of the agri-science teachers, and with me we have our treasurer for the episode tonight, Juliana.
Hi, Juliana. We're more nervous than you are, so it's okay.
All right. Again, thank you so much for having us tonight on the agenda. We are super excited to be here to be able to present the new department to you, what we're doing, and what our students are doing. But, yeah. Oh. Absolutely. No problem. So again, my name is Peter Lawler. This is Juliana Fontanella. And we are very excited to share with you what the students are doing in our classroom and what our new expectations are going to be. Take that with me. So to start out, it is our goal to enrich all of our students here at Chapag. So we have been working diligently to create safe environments and also to showcase our students with some cross curriculum. In our classrooms, we have recently been using geometry techniques of measuring diagonals and also the 3-4-5 shortcut rule of the Pythagorean theorem to reinforce what our kids are doing in our classrooms, and also to tie that back to the actual application of what they're doing in their math classroom. In addition to that, a warm welcome is felt by our new department as a lot of our seniors for their senior projects are actually coming up to us and looking for guidance. We have a couple of seniors looking for assistance with projects in environmental impacts and food sustainability this year. So we are more than happy to be able to support them in their needs for their senior project. So to get a little bit more specific, I'm going to ask Juliana to talk about what she's been doing in one of her plant classes with a Living to Serve grant.
Thank you. The Living to Serve grant is connecting the school community with the local community. In this grant, provided by the National FFA organization, students have been identifying non-native and invasive plant species on the grounds of Chapag Valley schools. Students will be determining the best management practices to implement for each species with the goal to eliminate and replace with non-invasives to promote local pollinator success. Progress of this grant will be available through publications and social media, as well as community outreach and community education about the struggles and impacts of invasives to our local ecosystem.
Thank you so much. In addition, if I could ask you guys to check out the photos on the screen of what our students are doing. You'll notice in the top left, Juliana is actually front and center in that photo. The students are also learning their plant anatomy. They have collected some species from our campus and are dissecting those and actually pulling them out so they can really understand the basis of the plant anatomy, which is going to be the foundation for everything moving forward, including things of like genetically modifications, how they're reproducing, and where our future with plants might be going. In addition, we have a lot of other fun activities, as has already been mentioned. We had students participate in the floral display contest at the Big E. So we have some images of the students actually participating in that and what their work looked like in the classroom for that activity. So on to another classroom. We also have students, as we speak, learning about power structural and technical systems. Safety and tool uses for the foundational skills in this PST system pathway is really where we're starting with our students. So our students are developing their skills to recognize and develop safe environments and safe work habits to ensure that they're creating a safe situation for themselves, a safe environment for others, and being able to identify hazards and everything that goes into creating a bad situation before it becomes an accident. After learning about the domino effect, we had our students demonstrate that they live in these situations every day by working out the situations that they do encounter every day and how they could pile up to create a bad environment in the school or in a job site to create an accident, ultimately possibly leading to an injury, which is our ultimate goal to avoid. So they are using these skills every day in class to really understand the world around them. As you can see, sure most of you saw that similar image as you drove in today. We did go out and we are using the active construction of our school to really showcase what can be done, what jobs exist for the students, and how to approach these situations with a safe sense of a sense of safety in their minds, knowing that these constructions are going on around, and we're going to be tying that in as we come back to the ultimate summative in the classroom. So they analyzed what equipment was on the site. We are looking at the opportunities of what we could use for robotics and future technologies to improve these systems, along with construction and other types. We're going to have the students actually come up with, once they understand how to maintain and operate these types of equipments, what could they do in the future to possibly automate or somehow program in a device to make it more sustainable and a safer environment. We also have our students working with animals. What would an agriculture center be without animals? So the students are learning a lot about animal systems. They're learning about how they function with human interactions. As we've probably recognized, humans have increased impacts in the world that we live in. So some topics thus far that we've already covered are proper care of animals. So the students can be seen learning how to properly handle our animals, both for their own safety as well as the safety of the animal. These handling techniques are used when we need to socialize animals or if we need to be able to transport an animal, say, to a vet if it gets injured or sick. And they are also learning about sanitation with animals and how important it is that although the animals look cute and fuzzy, they might be carriers of disease, and we need to be of the most utmost importance maintaining clean, healthy sanitation work environments for the benefit of the students and the animal. In the last photo on the far left, you can see students were learning about some specialized breeds as well, where we get into breed identification and breeding techniques of why humans have done what they've done in the breeding specifications to get the quality traits of an animal or a species that we are most interested in to really help humans out. Again, we can relate that back to the sustainability, both sustainability of the lineage of the animal as well as sustainability as humans as a civilization of using other animals in our ecosystems for our benefit. Moving out of the classroom a little bit, that probably wasn't good. We also come into our FFA. Chippewa has a brand new chartered FFA program. I'm sure you all are very aware of that. So we are working very diligently to develop our new leaders for tomorrow. At least once a week in our classroom, as the three-circle model suggests, we are exposing our students to our FFA curriculum, which is focused on leadership skills, personal growth, and ultimately career development. So our current students in 9th and 10th grade are learning about the FFA Creed that was written many, many years ago. This creed is ultimately the defining traditional understanding of what it means to really be part of the FFA organization. And the students are being challenged to not only be able to learn and recite these words, but really bring a personal meaning to them to understand why they have chosen to be part of our school and part of our program. So in some of the images, we have a lot of activities in that top image. It looks a little confusing. The students were asked to demonstrate an activity where they were using nonverbal language to be able to identify and come up with a solution to a problem. In the end, we brought that back around to explain how a lot of people in our society may be nonverbal or have some other impairment. So we brought this around to explain to them a sense of empathy, of to be a good leader in our environment, we really need to be able to fit into each other's shoes and understand where others are coming from. So ultimately, the students learned that we do become very dependent on our English language, and we will need to show some empathy to be able to be better leaders in our future in our community. I would also like Juliana to now talk about our first ever Chippewa chapter meeting that occurred last week.
The students' first chapter meeting was held September 25th in the Agri-Science Multipurpose Classroom. Our officer team led other members through an official opening ceremony and focused on team building activities to build our communities of students from all of our different sending districts. This meeting was held during advisory to allow all members to be present, as the FFA organization is the largest student-run organization in the country, at 700,170 active members. We want to ensure that all Chippewa members are provided equal opportunities to participate and learn the lessons that the FFA organization has to offer.
Thank you so much. So, a final part of our program that our kids are really excited about, really getting engaged in, is our career development events, the CDE competitions. Some of you, sounds like, have been to the Big E looking for our students' displays. Here are some of them actually on display at the Big E. I can provide more photos for anybody interested. But I did want to put a shout out that our agri-science program has started off our first year in amazing highlights. We were able to have 10 agri-science students compete in this floral display at the Big E. The Big E is our regional competition. Specifically in this competition, we were up against members from Virginia to Maine. There were over 40 entries in this competition. And just a couple of shout outs. We did place third by one of our own students, Peyton Nash, who is the football helmet from New Milford. It is the middle lower on the left side of the stacked animals. And in addition to Peyton, we also placed fifth with one of our students, Lauren Hope from New Milford. And a Zoe from here in Chippewa placed 14th. So to have those three students place that high their first time, we were so proud of them, because most of the other students that competed in this, not only were they from most of the East Coast, they likely were probably seniors that have been 4 years in this program demonstrating their skills. So the ability of our freshmen to be able to pull off those places is amazing. Upcoming, we do have a few other events that we want to highlight. We have students currently practicing for tractor driving, a safe tractor driving competition that'll be held next month in October at the Housatonic Regional School District. Actually, just this morning, I had a few students. We are working our way up to ensure safety. So the students will be working with small scale. Currently, we have my 3-year-old's monster truck there for remote control, so that if anybody does get run over, it's not a big deal. And they're actually using some of our VEX equipment to build a trailer to practice. One of the more difficult concepts of that is reversing a 4-wheeled hay wagon. Very difficult to do if you've ever tried it. In addition with that, our tractor driving team, once the competition is over, we have plans to take that into a robotic spin, working with the robotics club, and ultimately someday hopefully looking at trying to make our own self-automated tractor. Some other competitions that will be taking place in November are going to be our state level forestry competition, a floriculture competition, and nursery and landscape management competition. Those are all going to be at the state level, a little bit less than the Big E level, but still every other chapter in the state will be competing. Our safe tractor is in our district level, which is inclusive of Region 1, Nonawag, Wamogo, and Northwestern. As I've highlighted a little bit already, couple other last things to work in while I have the floor. I did want to share that last week I was able to attend a Yukon workshop for a natural resource ECE experience. So I am certified to teach that curriculum, and thanks to Teresa DeBrito, I was able to maintain that and go to this great workshop where they really focused on not only our newest generation of students that we're currently teaching in the school, but pointed out that UConn specifically and a lot of the universities are starting to understand our environment and our political dynamic, and that every UConn graduate now is required to have an environmental literacy credit class. So this natural resource course that we're hoping to be working into the curriculum to offer to some of our juniors and seniors in the upcoming years will not only fulfill a gen ed course and a natural resource course, but now is also going to fulfill that requirement for the environmental literacy. And as I had just mentioned in the previous slide, we are going to be maintaining our robotics club here at Chapag with every effort to do really well this year, hopefully. The VEX competition is going to be a tower challenge that involves selecting blocks and stacking them up. In some research I did, I found a very close competition through UC Davis that also ran this year that I feel is kind of where VEX got their ideas from. The ASABE, which is the American Society of Agricultural and Biological Engineers, had a very similar, it's not strictly held to one company. You can really be free to design your own, but this is a collegiate level tournament where the robots not only are going around to pick up the blocks, in this case, they are shaped to resemble potted plants. And as you can see on the screen, the leaf systems are representing of slightly modified health genetics of the plant. So the robots are looking for a little bit more, but really being able to assist in a nursery type environment to pick out the best of the best and organize them in a way of putting them on a shelf so that they're easy to maintain, or possibly take one that is not doing so well and put it where it can receive more care. So our goal in the future is to actually implement this type of robotic system here for our students to not only have them learn how to program robotics and get them prepared for a field in that type of technology, but really understand the implications of it and relate it to their own passions within agriculture. So thank you again so much for letting me have the floor for so long. I'm probably pretty sure I went over whatever time limit I had. If you guys are at all interested in keeping up with us or want to see the photos without having to go search through the entire Big E, we ask that you please follow us. We are on all the major platforms of social media. So on Facebook, we are Chapag AgriScience. On Instagram, we are Chapag_AgriScience. And on Twitter, we are at Chapag AgSci because they limited the number of characters we're allowed.
Just a quick question
Yes.
for Peter and a couple for Juliana. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you hail from, and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my background, I grew up in Western New York on a small family farm. My parents owned 24 acres. We raised cows, pigs, chickens, things like that. We hayed most of the fields. So I have a very closely related agriculture background. Beyond my childhood, I actually went to school. I have a bachelor's in geology and my master's in environmental science. And this is actually a change of career for me. I've spent the first career as an environmental scientist with a number of private and public organizations, and ultimately decided that coming into education to help the students understand our environment in the future and sustainability was going to be where I needed to be.
have you had previous teaching assignments?
Yes, sorry. I am coming to Chapag from Glastonbury High School. I spent the last 3 years as the natural resource and ag mechanics teacher in Glastonbury.
Thank you. Juliana, you're an officer with FFA? Okay.
Yeah, I'm an officer.
And can you tell us your primary or reason or reasons on how you determined that you wanted to take an alternative path in your high school education?
Well, I was looking at the different options. I wanted something that could sort of prepare me not just for college, but like be able to get me sort of a job. And I felt that this is really good because it teaches me math and science. It also prepares me for going into like an actual profession, and I get to meet other people who are also interested in that. So I felt it was a great way to support myself.
Thank you. And your limited exposure to the rest of the students, do you feel that they feel the same way? Pretty
I
much.
think so.
Yeah. Thank you.
So genuinely.
This is for Juliana. I know part of the FFA, yes, FFA is public speaking, and I heard you say before you started that you were very nervous, and I just have to say you did a fantastic job. So thank
Here.
you. Thank you.
Michael.
I'm just wondering if you could walk us through what your typical schedule is like. I know that you have classes that you'd share with the rest of Chippewa students, like English and math, but how would your agri-science classes fit into your daily schedule as well?
One of my agri-science classes, the one I'm taking with Miss Lori, fits directly into my schedule. In Chippewa, there are 7 different blocks, and you get like 6 classes a day. And agri-science is one of those blocks, so I get it 6 out of 7 days, which is nice because I don't have to squeeze it in. I don't have to come after school or anything. And then the CDEs, or as the officer, you sometimes take off of advisory or lunch, or sometimes come after schools. So it's like an extra opportunity or like an extra commitment if you want to.
Okay. Mary?
Peter, who is the head of the robotics team? Who is going to chair it or be the person who's in charge of that?
To be in charge of it this year,
Yes.
I'm going to be the advisor for the robotics club.
And I guess you still need people, right?
Yes, we are actively seeking participants. I have gotten some of our potential pathway for power structural and technical students on board. And I've reached out to the advisor from last year and got a few names that I'm going to be reaching out to those students individually, as well as some from our new assistant principal who has come to me with a few names of potential interested students.
Okie doke.
Just a quick question, Peter. What is entailed in a forestry competition?
So glad that you asked. So the forestry competition is actually one of my favorite ones. It is comprised of 5 different components. There is a multiple choice section that is general knowledge, from anything of when was Smokey the Bear created to modern current events of what forest fires are going on, what are some of the damages expected from various forest fires, things like that. And then the rest of it's a lot of practicum knowledge. So the students learn how to use a Biltmore stick and go out in the woods and actually measure live standing trees for how much lumber that could be produced from them. The students will also need to be able to identify living trees, samples, and photos of trees based on their barks, their leaves, and their berries or seed patterns. And then there's a few rotational. There's a team event. This year, the team event is going to be map interpretation. So the students need to be able to read and understand cartography and topographic maps. They'll have some questions to answer about that. And then there is a rotational component that's individualized that this year is chainsaw operation and safety. Yep.
Will you be felling any trees on site as part of this?
I am going to hold comment on that question until I have further
Well,
discussions.
if you do, talk to me. We have about 20,000 trees that you might have a shot at.
Okay. Thank you guys so
Okay.
much.
Thank you very much. All right, at this time, I'd like to have Michael Boucher come up to make a presentation of the class of 2019.
Good evening, everyone. You're going to be getting a handout right now. that looks like this. There's going to be a second handout for the second portion. So I will wait till everyone has one. And as you're getting them, those of you who don't know me, who may not have been at the meeting last year I was here, my name is Mike Boucher. I'm the Director of School Counseling. I took over in December after 5.5 years at Danbury High School, also serving as a school counselor. I've really enjoyed my time here in this district, and I look forward to taking you through our class of 2019 report that I had the pleasure of working about 4 months with, but fantastic class. So this presentation is going to go through the class profile itself, 2019, where our kids are going, what types of educational paths they took. We're going to talk about our AP Scholars for the class of 2019. It's something that we're extremely proud of. We're going to talk about answering a call to citizenship. This was an extremely impressive class, and I want to highlight some of their achievements. And we are going to talk about the institutions that they're actually attending and where they stack up in the U.S. News Report. So if you will please turn to page 1. So our class of 2019 class profile. Total students, we had 67 students in the graduating class of 2019. Out of the 67 students, we had 57 of them accepted to post-secondary programs. Out of those students, out of the 67 as well, 50 were accepted to 4-year programs. So when I say 4-year programs, what I mean is a 4-year college, a 4-year technical program as well. 47 of the 67 students will be attending a 4-year institution. In addition, we had 7 students who are attending 2-year institution or technical institution. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. In my experience in school counseling and as a student, there's been a stigma about community colleges. And I think the state of Connecticut specifically is doing a lot of good around this. And hence why we had 7 students accepted to Naugatuck Valley Community College and Northwestern Community College, and they are attending there now. So there's some new interesting programs that connect directly to the state universities, UConn, Central, WestConn, Eastern, and Southern. So with UConn, we have the guaranteed admission program. You would take 2 years at UConn. You take 2 years at your Connecticut Community College. As long as you get a 3.0 and earn your associate's degree, you have a guaranteed transfer into UConn. Okay. There are specific program requirements. It's outlined really nicely on the Connecticut Community College page. I highly recommend taking a look at that. Another transfer program is called transfer tickets. Transfer tickets are similar to the UConn program, but with less requirements. That 3.0 isn't necessarily required, but this has to do with the state universities. So if you complete an associate's degree at, let's say, Naugatuck, Tungus, Middlesex, for our students, it would be Northwestern or Naugatuck typically. If they were to complete those 2 years, earn their associates, they would have a guaranteed transfer ticket to one of those 4 other state schools, so Eastern, Southern, Western, and Central. Below the 2-year institutions, I have transition program. What I mean by transition program is we have the Chippewa Valley Partnership for some of our students that might not necessarily be ready for another program, and it's a means of transitioning. It's a means of transitioning to society. They are rewarded certificates at graduation. They take part of graduation with their graduating class, and they go to the Chippewa Valley Partnership program. So when I say transition program, that's what I mean by that. Career training program. We had 1 student attending a career training program, specifically an automotive technology program at University of Northwestern Ohio, which is the first I've ever sent a student there. He's extremely excited and he's doing very well. We also had 1 student join the military, the Air National Guard, and we're very proud of her. So with that class profile, if you look below, I gave a sampling of our students' intended majors. Some that I wanted to point out that were our more of our popular ones. We had biology, was popular, top 5 most popular intended majors out of this class. Biology, business, communications, engineering, and nursing. So those were the top 5 most popular out of this class. So it was a nice mix of humanities and STEM, which we obviously like to see. We like to see that here at Chippewa. All right, so moving on to the next page. I'm going to talk a little bit about our class of 2019 AP Scholars. This was a very, very strong senior class, as evidenced by 42 of our seniors, and or 63% of them, took and completed at least one AP course during their high school tenure, which is that's a huge deal. We also had several students recognized with AP Scholar recognition. So we had 4 AP Scholars, and you'll see above that recognition I outline exactly what they are. So an AP Scholar is when students receive a 3 or better on 3 or more exams in a given year. AP Scholar with honors is awarded to students receiving an average of 3.25 on all exams taken and scoring 3.0 or higher on 4 or more of these exams. So for our students, we had 4 AP Scholars, 2 AP Scholars with distinction, and we had 1 National AP Scholar, which was a huge deal. This student took 9 AP exams. His lowest score was a 4, and it was only on 1 of them. It's very impressive. 9 over 2 years. Yep. So something else I wanted to highlight. Of the 67 seniors, as I said, 42 of the graduates took and completed 1 or more. More impressively, 28 students completed 2 or more AP courses, which accounts for 42% of our class. 18 completed 3 or more AP courses, or 27%. And 11 completed 4 or more. So 16% of the graduating class completed 4 or more AP courses, which is just a testament to their work ethic and diligence and making sure they're taking a rigorous course load. Moving along, I wanted to give a brief kind of snapshot of what our graduating class of 2019 did as far as community service. So with this class, they racked up over 4,300 hours collectively of community service. It's a lot of community service, especially considering our graduation requirement is 30 hours, and we had 67 in that class. So 4,300 community service hours, that's something that we are extremely proud of. Junior counselors at summer camps, volunteering at local libraries, they thrived in absolutely anything they did as far as volunteering. So I put some highlights as well. So 10 students out of the 67 completed over 100 hours of community service. 25 of those students doubled the requirement of 30 hours. So that's 25 students had over 60 hours, which is also very impressive. And our community service award recipient contributed 415 hours last year. So that's something, obviously, we're extremely proud of. Moving right along. The class of 2019 future education plans. So on this list, I outline where our students are attending. You'll notice that I'm not going to list the school twice if multiple kids are going there. But I will tell you what I intend to tell you here is where our kids applied to most. So out of our students, the schools that were the most popular, I'm going to give you the top 10. We had a spike in Western Connecticut State University and UConn were our top 2, as per usual. We had a big spike in a few universities that I thought was really interesting. Pennsylvania State University, Penn State. We had a number of applicants for there. Roger Williams University as well. A number of applications sent out to there. Springfield College. University of Vermont. University of Rhode Island. And then the other one that was on the top 10 was Eastern Connecticut State University, which is also in our state university system. So a really diverse group of schools. If you'll also notice a London School of Economics, which I'll make mention to a little bit later on in our presentation. But really well-rounded group, a really well-rounded list of schools, something that we are extremely proud of. So on the next page, each year we break down our acceptances for the class of 2019 with the ratings from the U.S. News and World Report. The U.S. News and World Report, they let us know how selective these schools are, most selective being the highest, and less selective or unrated non-competitive being the lowest. So something I wanted to point out, and I had mentioned the London School of Economics. It is not in the United States, therefore it is not in the U.S. News World Report. However, I had to do a little digging because I know the caliber of the student that is attending there, and I'm aware of the caliber of the school. And it has been from numerous sources a top 10 in the world social science program. That's the London School of Economics. So I mean, it was mentioned in the same breath as Harvard. So this is an extremely impressive school. So the fact that it's not on the selective list, that's not a testament to how challenging it is to get accepted there. And just to give you kind of a tidbit on how this acceptance happened, the student needed to gain a 5 on the AP Calc exam to get in there. So a little added pressure. So that just goes to show how difficult it is and how challenging it is, and what a great institution it is as a whole. So that concludes the first piece of the presentation. I'm back to back. I didn't know, Greg, if you needed to stop for a little bit and move on to the profile, or if you wanted to. Those are two separate agenda items.
Well, if you have more on this, let's continue. Otherwise,
So no. So this was the last page of this report, and then I'm going to kind of tie into our school profile.
please go.
Absolutely.
And I think as this becomes the foundation for what is our publication that we send out, we are going to try to get that out around Thanksgiving, because that's when a lot of our students come back, and we know we like to make them feel really good about what they've been able to achieve. I think one of the things that we are going to do, especially hearing as you have described this, and even from the experience of people who are on the board whose children have gone internationally, identifying the true competitiveness, because looking like it's non-competitive,
Right.
we also don't want to give the impression that no, these are top schools, and somewhere along this we'll have that distinction with the publication that goes out to the masses.
Yes, and there also will be more information pertaining to senior project. Senior project's a distinction, so that'll be also mentioned. This is a snapshot of the class. The report that you'll get will be nice and in color. I was doing us all a favor trying to save on color printing and paper, so I did front and back. So you're welcome. So do we want to? Yes, John, right? Yes, Mr. Bonaduto.
You mentioned, do each of the students, is it mandatory community service
Yes.
hours?
Yes.
30? You said 30?
Yes, part of the graduation requirement is 30 hours. If students were to transfer in from another school later on, we have we have a scale, just because that wouldn't be fair to expect them. Let's say they come in the middle of their senior year, to expect them to do 30 hours community service. So we would adjust it according to how long they've been there.
So that's throughout their entire high
Correct.
school career.
Yep. So as a school counseling department, we recommend doing a minimum of 10 a year, your freshman, sophomore, junior year. So then you go into your senior year and you're done. But obviously, as you can see from the amount of hours that this previous class put in, we really value community service, and we like to blast it out via social media and email whenever we have exciting opportunities in the area.
And there's never any problem with placing students in certain
So-
assignments, or
Yes and no. So no, in the sense that there are plenty of opportunities within our region. No, sometimes students, wait till the last second. As much as we, coax them into, you got to get this done. There are a handful of students that wait, which we are trying to combat that.
and just to follow up also, for the ag students, they have service hours, or is it work experience service hours? How would you describe that? Okay, so also they're going to have a few hours to. Okay, thank you.
Do you want to address any more questions before I start school profile, or?
Unless I don't see anyone with questions, so we'll just go ahead
Sure.
and go to the school.
So one thing I wanted to point out before we get going, I've looked this over, and there's a minor edit that I need to make in the grading and GPA in the bottom right-hand corner on the front page. There needs to be obviously a C, because it doesn't go C plus and then C minus. There needs to be a C in the middle of there. So we are working on correcting that error, and I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention before I get to going. So Superintendent and I, Ms. Gallo, and Mike Croft, we've sat at the table a couple times. Also, I want to just give a quick shout out to our cameraman, Mr. Allen, over there, because the layout and the way it looks, this is the color version. I'm going to pass around. Apologize. I'm going to pass around the color version so you get a better idea of what it looks like. Again, I was trying to save on color copies, so. So a few things I wanted to point out. The general layout, I feel it's more 20th century. We had the previous school profile for a little while. I'm not sure exactly how long before I got here, but it had been in place, and it was a very nice school profile. But we wanted to make it more aesthetically pleasing. So we used our new Chippewa logo and the Spartan logo to kind of jazz it up as far as promoting our school. The whole point of a school profile, this is being sent to colleges. Okay, so colleges want to see the rigor of the courses. I think that's kind of the most important piece to them. But they also want to see more about our school. They want to learn more about our school. So this is a nice way to communicate all the great things we do here in Chippewa. Up top, you will see there is a chart that says Chippewa Valley School 7-semester GPA. Okay. Originally, we had a 3-year composite. I expanded it to 5-year because our 5-year is pretty darn impressive. If you look at the 95 to 100, that's our top one, and that just kind of goes to show out of those 242 students, the majority, the highest percentage, was in that 95 to 100 category, which is a solid AA plus. So kudos to us. Another piece, if you notice at the bottom left hand of the first page, there's class of 2019 recognition. Those are just some highlights that we wanted to point out. I touched upon the AP Scholars. We had a National Merit Scholar recipient. Halo nominations is our theater program. CIAC Scholar Athletes are also included in there. We will look to expand, as we continue to improve this. Another piece at the bottom paragraph in our school profile, you will notice mention of our agri-science program. Obviously, that is new for this year, so that is in there as well. We want to flip to the back. We have highlighted on the right-hand side, we have all of our advanced placement classes, 2 new classes in the dual enrollment category. I'd like to point everyone's attention. We have the UConn ECE Economics, and we also have the UConn ECE Foundations of Western Thought. So those are under the dual enrollment, although they aren't considered necessarily advanced AP per se. They are weighted at a 1.2 weighting because they are college level courses. So just to distinguish that from you guys. In the middle, you will see a box. We're doing this a little differently too, and this is how we translate our graduates' SAT scores, and also we put the updated total community service hours. We've made acknowledgement that there's 88% were accepted to post-secondary education, and 77% were accepted to 4-year programs. Total community service hours, as I said, eclipsed 4,300. The exact number is 4,354. Class of 2019 SAT results. This is something we tinkered around with, and we saw that colleges were using this statistic when they were talking to students about where their acceptances fall. And I thought it was a nice way to lay out where our scores fall. So you have 25% below that, and you have 25% above that. So that's our middle 50%. It's broken down with a total score. The EBRW stands for evidence-based reading and writing. Math stands for math. And then there was the mean total for each of those. So we're trying something different. I personally like it, and a lot of the selective colleges, that's how they're showing kids where kids fall that are applying to their schools. Besides that, the layout is pretty much the same. It's just a matter of putting in new information. Model UN. This year they were Saudi Arabia. What was last year? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but France. Thank you, Mr. Santra. Yeah, so there's Saudi Arabia this year. Chippewa musicians had, a very busy year performing at different venues. Chippewa Dramatics had a great showing with their play, tons of Halo awards and nominations. And our digital media program has taken off, as everyone has been seeing all these emails about kids being featured on Fox 61. I think that's pretty incredible. It's something that I'd never even really saw in previous districts. So I think, it was nice to kind of touch upon that. And that is it as far as changes. If anyone has any questions about either the class of 2019 report or the school profile, I'm happy to answer them. Alex.
Sure, I'll turn this on. Okay, if I'm reading this correctly, on the front page,
Yep.
under the 7th semester GPA,
Yep.
no one failed?
That's overall. So when I say 7th semester GPA, that means actual GPA of graduates.
I gotcha. Yeah, okay.
There were those few kids that skated by, but I mean, if you look at the numbers, look at the overwhelming A's and B's. It's just a nice visual.
Could you explain though this concept of this being a composite over 5 years? So if you look at a 5-year period of time, you had 75 of the 242 students studied. You had 75 of them that had an average of 95 to 100. That's the average at the end of 5 years? That's the cumulative average? That's the annual average? Just how does this work?
Cumulative 7th semester GPA is the GPA they have when they graduate from Chippewa. So these are based on graduates. This isn't a matter of year by year. So this is class of 2019, class of 2018, class of 2017, class of 2016, class of 2015. That is their final 7th semester GPA at the end of their career at Chippewa.
Still not sure I know what this is. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Teresa DeBrito, I think you're next. What's your presentation related to the Smarter Balance results?
Good evening, everyone. I did have the results, the 5-year results for Smarter Balance shared with you, so you do have that in your packet. And so just want to bring everyone up to date regarding the Smarter Balance results. They do measure student mastery of the Connecticut core standards for English and mathematics. We have administered it for 5 years. I did color code cohorts so that you can visibly identify groups progressing through the district. These results include all students in that particular grade who were present during the testing window. The bold arrows direct us to look at the most recent assessment results for the spring of 2019. The first chart specifically shows the results for English language arts from year to year, and the second chart shows the math results from year to year. You may ask, how do these results that are reported actually cause us to really ponder and think about different things that we do for students? And we do have an all-hands-on approach. We look at the groups of children, perhaps new children coming into the district, children that have been in the district, looking at their growth over time. And specifically for the English language arts assessment, students are measured on their ability to read, to listen and write and respond to research inquiry. In math, students are measured by concepts and procedures, problem solving, modeling, and data analysis. And the third component is communicating reasoning. Much of the assessment is scored online with various options for student responses. It is not just a traditional multiple choice assessment. The classroom teachers, along with building administration, review each child's results and compare the specific data point to how the student performs on a day-to-day basis in the school. Very specific plans are developed to ensure progress. When students are younger, these focused areas of need are more clearly identifiable. As they progress and get older and into adolescence and to the secondary level, there are many layers as to why there might be a potential gap. We do, for the first time this year, have some tutors that were added to the secondary level that are assisting with very specific areas of concern. In addition, want to explain to you that we recognize courts making significant progress, and we also recognize there are particular groups that we need to dive deeper to help those particular students along. But overall, we definitely do dig into the results and feel very confident that we do meet the student needs as we progress and grow together. I'm happy to answer specific questions and to certainly get back to you if we don't have the questions immediately at hand. Alex.
Being a representative from Bridgewater, I can't help but notice these math scores. Is we're talking about all 3 grades getting 100?
Correct. Based on, yes, if you look at 2019, every single child in grades 3, 4, and 5 did receive that result.
And in English, 4th and 5th, the same.
Correct. And 3rd was 90%.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No other town is going to gin up and take pride.
3rd grade at Washington Primary, nothing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Megan, do you want to talk to us about the October 1 enrollment data, which will be tomorrow?
Don't worry, I had them pull the data the last thing they could do. So if anybody withdrew, we stopped answering phones. So to say to you right now, we have 701 students. Did everybody get a copy of the? We did. And actually, and this is one of those where I also want to say, right now, the enrollment that we have that we've listed, we do have it where it shows K through 12. It does not indicate our students who are at the Chippewa Valley program and some of the other. So just one where to say that there are students who aren't counted within this. However, they are a very valuable part of our community. So I just want to make certain that I make note of that. But if you look at, we did add a column. I believe, Julie, you had requested saying, we can't just make it look like we only have 28 kids in the program. So we did. We added the AgriScience Local. We called it AgriLocal. Because we do. But to say that this way, it really starts to identify and capture what you see with our enrollment trends. Again, it is noted that our tuition non-resident students, of our 701 students, 125 of those students are non-residents within our 3 towns. Additionally, it should be noted that even with the Chippewa Valley Partnership, the success of the program last year was recognized by other towns, and so now other towns are actually sending students to our transition programs. That is a testament to Allie, to Betsy O'Neill, who's running the program over there. And I will tell you, in the conversations with the Washington Business Association, there's value in the partnerships that they're finding. So to say to you right now, we're proud of our trends. We continue to talk about what we have to do for our marketing strategy. But again, when you have 125 students who have to go out of their way to come to our schools, says that something pretty spectacular is happening in our schools. Any questions as far as enrollment?
Okay. Yeah, Mike.
Megan, I'm just wondering how we are able to communicate to our three towns that staggering number of 125 and the fact that it's been growing. I think, especially in budget time, that would be important for them to know in terms of what that means for Region 12 and specifically the bottom line, which many voters are concerned about the economics. They've heard that, for example, that the agri-science program is going to be an economic burden. We both know that that's not true, but that is certainly one of the threads of conversation out there in the community. And I'm wondering how we can communicate this good news to them so that we can kind of dispel that myth.
I agree. We have to get better about celebrating ourselves. And Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong when I'm going to say the figure. Our tuition in numbers is $1.1 million coming in. That's correct. So to say to you, when we put out our projection and we shared with everyone during the budget season, when we lowballed it at $770,000, we exceeded that. And I do think, and I agree with you, at some point now it becomes a means of getting that into the community conversation, and to make certain that we have the accurate data that we're talking about. Because I think when we're talking in terms of opinions, we'd like to make certain that there's the facts behind those.
Yeah, I wanted to add that of those, of that $1 million, those tuition in students, we've had to hire how many extra teachers in order to accommodate those tuition in students?
Just their agri-science teachers.
Other than agri-science, which we plan to do anyway, none. And so that's why that $1 million is significant, because we are basically selling those seats on the plane that otherwise would be going out empty. And so we've hired basically at this point 3 teachers. Eventually it'll be more. But those numbers are more than paying the cost of that and leaving us with extra surplus. So, and the other thing I think you need to look at is if we do as well at attracting AgStem students over the course of this, I think, we have what, 27, 37, 40 AgStem students who are in the 9th grade. So if we accept 40 every year, that's 160. And that's above our number for breaking even. So the good news, I think, is that if we continue to be successful, the program will do quite well financially. And I think once we have a completed physical plant, we will have something pretty darned impressive to show. And I think it's going to boost those numbers even higher. At least that's our hope. So I think that's the message that should go out as to how AgStem is doing and how it's contributing. And you saw tonight how it's contributing mightily to our school and making an even better school than it has been. So, all right, I think we're gonna now go on to, this is not deja vu all over again. The first day of school video. I think what you saw last time was the first day of school video for the prior year. Now we're going to get the first day this year.
Going. If you actually do go onto YouTube and watch our video, what Ben did is he overlaid the speeches that were given during the convocation onto the pictures of what's being seen with our students. And what it is that with every message behind it, it's the message of hope. It's the belief we have in our students. It's all the voices of people who are at the table trying to guide our school district, sharing and celebrating what came to be. So to say that what you have and what you see, when you put it together, it really does create a nice image that we support our students. And there's joyful learning that didn't just happen on the first day of school, it's happening throughout the year. And they're just really cute. One hug, Greg. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, very good. We'll move on now to the agri-science update. Megan, do you want to go through the program status?
And thank you, Ben. I changed up the way that this was looking for this board meeting. I know we were tracking things along the continuum, and I think it was getting marred. I think some of the things that were happening were kind of getting muddled amongst the imagery. So as we look at the overall, our program is continuing to go strong. The building, and I know Greg is going to talk more to it, is the part that's in yellow. We are seeing some things that have passed in timeline. However, those passages of timeline, we are compensating within the program, and Kim Gallo is navigating some of those hiccups very well in order to make certain that we're still driving the program and it is appreciated. So some of the achievements that we've had, and you can read along, but the clearance of the fire marshal, it was a heroic feat to actually get the systems to work together. When you say that they had changed out every single device, they changed out panels, they chased down wires, and it looked like we'd always get it, and then the fire marshal would come and something screwy would happen. So to say that it is all functioning, it was a celebration. Additionally, we have the agri-science poster that is going to be displayed in each one of the sending towns, and we'll have Ben show that afterwards, as well as a parent's guide brochure that was created. And this brochure actually came because Paula Conway sat down with Lori Travato because her son, who's in the program, she had questions as a parent. And what she came up with for her snapshot of things she really wanted to know, and she was going to share it with the FFA PFA, which is essentially the PTO of families in our FFA program and our agri-science students. But what she actually came up with, we gave that information to Ben, who captured the images. And I think when you see the brochure and what it amounts to, it gives a very clear understanding of these are the responsibilities when you walk into an agri-science program. There are a lot of demands on our agri-science students as far as their service hours. You heard what Peter said. That's in addition to their student and internship apprenticeships that they have, and so their agriculture experiences. So when she put it together, it beautifully became something that is a snapshot for our parents, and we will share that with you as well. We had an issue with a support beam and the heater that was there, and that has been thus corrected. They have engineered it so that way. Before, Greg's eagle eye kind of noticed a little bit of a bow in it, and so he beat up a couple people emotionally in order to make certain that they made certain that everything looked right, and two, it was properly supported. We knew it was supported, but that bow kind of gave the look that maybe it was going to buckle. So appreciate those details. I'm also very proud to say that we now have toilet paper dispensers in the bathroom. I know it is a big moment, but those are things in which we want to make certain that we also appreciate that Don's level of detail. He actually went in himself to make certain that where it was being positioned based on because they didn't actually design it in the floor plans. So, to know he went in and figured out how to make it work for what is logistically needed. We also have recruitment efforts that are continuing, as well as working with our private schools. I know that we're going to Rumsey Hall on October 10th, but it's one in which, we're not just limiting ourselves to our sending towns. We're going to the private schools. We're making certain that our name is in the community. I also had the opportunity to go on a learning walk with Nicole up at Lyman Hall. And I have to tell you, we walked away with really understanding things that happen within the program that I wasn't even aware of. Things such as they rent out field space in order to actually get the feed that they're going to give to the animals. So the ag mechanic students who are working and doing the cutting of a field, they have 11 acres. They use that for the feed that goes to the animals. Then what is the waste? Then that goes out and they use that on the field. So to know that they've created these things and that feeds the program itself. And so to get that kind of perspective and to say, okay, are we already designing that? That took them 70 years to get to. How do we learn from what they've already experienced to make certain our program is ready to handle that kind of benefit from within early on? So those are things that we are working at. Some setbacks that we've had, and obviously, Building A, which is our mechanics building, was scheduled to be turned over to the school on September 27th, and I believe that is now November 4th. But we are working to make certain that there is no programmatic impact. Building F, which was our large barn, that was the original one that was scheduled to be turned over in October. And as you can see, we put the solutions with the setbacks underneath. So we are making certain that the temporary building is going to be in place. The date that they've given us is end of next week. End of this, okay, Friday. See, I was giving them more time. Don't let me do that, Alex. Get them on schedule. So those are things in which we already have we're ready to get the animals on. We just need to have the place to put them. And we also, we found that the topsoil where it was placed was actually where the temporary large building was going to be. So now they've moved it by the greenhouse, and hopefully we can make certain that just because it's an inconvenience doesn't mean we're not looking towards solutions and ways that we can make it work for our students and our teachers and our communities. So those are things that we have. If we go to the next slide, again, this is just looking at the numbers that we have. John, you had asked about the new Milford wait list. We did go into the wait list. We did get an additional student, so we are back to our 8 that we had. So we continue to work at that. So we do have 46, and I apologize. I don't like the way yellow is looking on this screen, so I will make certain that I adjust that for our future meetings. But that does say 46 students.
Okay. Mike.
Megan, I know I just wanted to go back to the last slide for a second. I know one of the things that you mentioned that you're moving is the season for recruitment already for next year, and I know that's really time consuming. Just a couple ideas for you, and it may not be that this is something doable for this current recruitment year, but maybe for next year. I'm wondering if you could work with some of the Chippewa computer science classes to do like a virtual tour of Chippewa, and maybe even a separate one for Chippewa Agri-Science Academy, because that, there are maybe many parents in our sending towns who may miss the presentation that you're going to be making in let's say Danbury, but hear about it afterwards and would love to, maybe they're not as motivated to drive here, but they can click on that link. So just one idea.
I think that's a fabulous idea. And actually, Ben, if you can get us to the poster that you've created, so that way they can see that will be sitting in our sending towns and as well as in our own guidance office.
Awesome.
The only thing that's missing that will be in the final markup is that we have a QR code going at the bottom because we are Ag STEM. But it is to say that will scan. A child can go with their cell phone, scan it, and it takes them right to our application. So again, we want to make certain, but this will be up for the sending towns, so we are in people's purview. Oh, that's a great idea. Look at this. We're going to evolve. I love it, Kim. Thank you. And then the next slide that Ben is going to show, this is the brochure that came from a parent, again, Paula Conway, who said, I have some questions, sat down, and her learning. And so this is what came about from her feedback as well as crafting it, and
it's impressive.
That's the inside.
Yeah.
And again, kudos to you, Ben, because we appreciate you're really showcasing us in a wonderful light.
So just another idea too is if we could get those materials out in other venues other than your trips to schools. I'm thinking equestrian competitions for students that compete at that level. Maybe they're thinking of private school, but we can give them a public school option for those students. And then also any of the summer agri fairs that we have, like I'm thinking Bridgewater's fair is a natural, but there may be other fairs, like Bethlehem has a huge agriculture fair. Many of the people who exhibit in Bethlehem may be residents of our sending towns. So they may be another way to reach that population, whether it's parents or students. That would be wonderful, something that they could pick up. I don't know if the FFA would want to do a booth, or if we would just want to have materials available up somewhere.
And I think we talked about a booth going forward. And I know some of our students and staff work the booths, Bridgewater, but I think your statement of having something that is loud and proud and we have something to showcase, I agree with that 100%.
Okay. Well, I will move on to the building status. The most challenging thing we've had really has been where there's a delay all the way back at the manufacturing level that then cascades through the program. I mean, frankly, most of where we are today is as a result of that building not getting into the production line, building F, the riding ring building, not getting into the production line when we needed it to be in the production line. Because what that did is it required even people who were doing site work, masons and others, to be working in that area rather than working in some of the areas on the school building. And as a result, it caused delays that cascaded through, and that's really where we are. The other problem we've got is I've asked our people, can't we just put more people on it and get it done? And the answer is we would if we had them. But one of the problems in this state is we simply do not have enough people going in, not enough kids going into trades. And as a result, there's somewhat of a shortage, they're telling me, of people. And so when you have multiple projects going on throughout the state, a lot of the companies doing business on our job have projects in other areas, and there's a limited number of people that they have able to perform those. So this has been our sort of frustration. But nonetheless, we are making progress. If you were to go out on the site today, you would see that we're making progress on building A, which is the mechanical shops. That again is waiting for a delay in the glass, and it's not the glass that we're missing; it's the frames, and those are now being put in. And some of them we still don't have, but we will have them shortly. But those are now going up. And once we get that building, all the glass in that building will finally be closed in and they can finish the interior. Most of the interior is done, so it won't be a long time to get that there. But there's the last few things they need the building closed in for, and then building A will be delivered to us, we hope, on time at the very end of October. Or I'm sorry, yeah, well, November 4th, it was supposed to be actually delivered to us at the end of October, with our actual use date being November 4th. We have to move in. There's a lot of equipment that has to be moved in. So that's a big move-in intensive space. It's got a lot of machinery that has to come in there. You'll see that building F is roofed. If you walk up to the south side of that building, you will see functioning Dutch doors on the horse stalls for the horses to come in and out. Those are in, they are installed. The walls on that building are getting further and further completed, not quite done yet. There's one additional section of the building. The steel is going to be here this, I think, beginning of next week or this middle of this week, so they can finish that last piece of the building, and then that goes on to the inside. And so there's progress being made on that building. That building is our outlier. That's the last thing that's going to be finished. That and the science labs that we knew were going to be finished in December. So that's sort of where we are on that. Other than that, we're making tremendous progress. We expect to have a horse on this property next week, but don't hold your breath, because it's taking a little longer than we thought to finish the area. We're temporarily moving the horse over to here in what would be the Chappaq growing fields, because they're where they wanted to originally to temporarily move the horse and cow and that facility is they have not been successful in getting the soil piles off of that site. If you went out there, you saw soil piles that were taller, almost as tall as the barn. We're talking 30 plus feet of topsoil that they have to screen and remove, and it's taking longer because that was supposed to go up to the new athletic field, but they ran into ledge at the north east end of that field. It's the first ledge we found on site. It's not a lot of ledge. It's not an expensive proposition to get it out, but it has delayed it because they have to. They need a design from the architect on drainage that deals with the ledge. And once they have that, they can finish. We said to them, well, why don't you just start removing it? You know, you're going to have to take some of it out. So they did start that, and that got us some time advance. But that ledge has to be removed. They have to have a drainage system that takes account of it, and then they can get back to putting that field together. So it's things like that that cause construction projects not to finish precisely on time. But we are making progress, and I just want to be clear on what happened with that beam that the superintendent mentioned. There are two large heating units that are about a square yard each. They are heavy, and they are hanging from the ceiling in the greenhouse. They hang from a beam that goes across. When I saw that installed, I noticed that the beams were deflecting. Deflecting means they're bowing because the device was, I believe, too heavy for the beams. Everyone said, no, that they are deflected, but it's all been designed properly and it should be okay. And I said, I don't think so. And I want that looked at. And we brought the architect in. He looked at it and said, no way, no how. And the next thing you know, they came up with a solution that solved the problem. But that's where you have to be walking the halls and checking it, because you just cannot assume that things will get done. And Don O'Leary also noticed it as well when he was doing his walkthrough. And that's why we do punch lists and we go through and have things checked. We decided to let O&G do their punch list and finish that work first, so we wouldn't have to give them such a long list of things they had already noticed. But we're going to go through shortly and try to get all the little details picked up and around here. If you were to walk through that door in the back there, you would see that these rooms have now all been laid out. They've got studs. Many of them are sheetrocked, and so the science labs are moving forward, and we're making some progress there as well. So that's more or less the building situation. And as soon as we get the questions answered, I'm going to call on John for a second. Then Nicole can tell us about all the money we're spending. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, there was a second issue in the greenhouse, wasn't there, with the shade?
Yes.
Or something?
When this greenhouse, if you were to go into it, you would see that it has a kind of a shade curtain that goes up along the top of it, covers the entire top. And the idea of that is in the warmer months, it stops some of the heat penetration into the building so that the building is not grotesquely hot. And so it helps with controlling the temperature in there in the summer months. It's not unusual at the top of that greenhouse for the temperature to get north of 140 degrees. And so as a result, this keeps that temperature from penetrating down into the bottom of the greenhouse and sort of frying everybody and all the plants and everything else. But it created another problem because heat blankets work two ways. And the fire marshal was concerned that when that is in its down position, all of the fire heads that sense heat are in the top of that structure. And this blanket is between those heads and the bottom. And the fear is if there was a source of heat in the lower part of the greenhouse, it might not be recognized by the sensors up there, which are set very high because they get 140, 150 degree temperatures up there. So they're set high. And the feeling was that you could get more fire before those noticed that the building was in that position. Because remember, when that building is in the warmer months, you've got fans blowing air through the building, going through an evaporative coil, actually being drawn into the building through an evaporative coil system. So there's a system in that building that lowers the temperature and controls the temperature in the hotter months. And the fear is that if that was going full blast, it might be too late before the sprinklers went upstairs. So we were required at a cost of about $20,000 to install a dry system below. And this dry system, what happens is when that comes on, if it senses heat below the blanket above a certain level, it causes a panel to notice that there's a problem down there, and that sets off a reaction that causes shuts off all the fans, closes the building in, locks it in, and then that allows the heat to go directly up to the sensors. It sets off the regular fire sprinkler system, and then the building is perfectly safe. So that was done. Many people thought it was overkill, but you know what? When it comes to life safety, there's no such thing. And I was 100% in favor of doing it, even though it costs extra money, because it really gives us a redundant fire system in that area. So that's what that was about and how that was handled. And I think the fire marshal was right on top of it, and our engineers designed a system that really made it work. And so that system is not quite yet installed. The dry system is not in yet. They've just done the floor in there, so they're in the process of doing the floor in the greenhouse. So the greenhouse will shortly be delivered to us. What we may do is, if the dry system is not in before we take possession of the greenhouse, we're going to take the blanket and retract it, and that eliminates any potential concern or problem. And we'll just simply not use the blanket until such time, if the fire marshal permits that. So we're in the process of evaluating what our options are to take possession of it, because it looks like it's getting very close to being ready, the greenhouse, as we speak. So I think that's probably yes.
Greg, I'm just curious about the horse. Do you know anything about the horse that's coming?
I can't. I really. It's not a horse that I know.
Do you know what kind of horse it is, or anything about it?
We can get you that information. Lori Travato has been coordinating with the farms, so at some point we can get that to you, so that way, because I know that there are definitely factors we need to consider when we have people, letting us learn from their animals, and we want to make certain not only are we caring, but it's also appropriate for our students. So there's that fine balance that we've got to make certain we're vetting the animals. So I can certainly get you the information.
One of the things I was insistent on with O&G was that horse is coming on the property on a given day, and at that point we are not having any machinery, any work, anything going on in that back area of the property. That's got to be 100% finished, and 100% finished means complete. And 100% finished, and not, well, we got part of it done, we'll be back later, because we've got a road that goes all around the entire building for fire access. That road has to be, it's already laid out, the road's there, but it needs to be paved, it needs to be asphalt paved, and I assume that that's going to be done once they finish the concrete curbing back there. Then they can pave that as well, which is a small parking lot for the plant sales area. And so once that's paved and they have put up the agricultural fence, they're going to put up the final fence, which is designed for containing plants, not horses. It's an 8-foot fence. And once that's in, we can then, and the building is there, which is supposed to come in the next couple of days. They've already got the foundation laid out for it. They just need to plop it on top of it. At that point, we'll be able to bring a horse in. The horse will not have a field of grass to nibble. It will be primarily on stone dust. But that is a temporary measure that, with any luck, will be moving to another field, which also won't have grass on it, because it takes a long time to grow grass. And when your field is covered with 30 feet of dirt, it's not going to happen. So that's where we are, and we should have that. But we will have a horse on the property. It will be able to be put through its educational paces. And with any luck, that'll be about a week from now, or a little bit more. Any questions? It just very well, I may be in that stall before we're done, but no, we will, the students will be mucking that stall, or those stalls. Let's see, I think then, Nicole, it's your turn to tell us where we are on finances.
So at our last meeting on the 9th, I updated you that we were going to approve application 13, which the building committee did do. We issued payment the middle of September for $2.7 million. That took us for work completed through July 31st, which represented 51% of the project. The building committee is about to act at its next meeting next week on application 14, which will take us through August 31st. Application 14 is in the amount of $3.6 million. That will bring us closer to being nearly 2/3 done with the project. We have $5.6 million on hand, and when the state opens the portal tomorrow, I'll be requesting the funds for application 14. We are an even month requester, so tomorrow is a good day for us. This month I'll also be requesting our first FF&E draw because now the furniture is in place, so I can start to draw toward the FF&E funds to get those invoices paid to the furniture providers. And the last piece is we are going to be going back out to bid on the second phase of FF&E in the next few weeks, bidding it differently since we did not receive any responsive bids the last time we went out. So we are poring over some state contracts to see if there's other items that were previously sent to bid that we can buy off of state contract rather than rebidding them, and then we'll rebid those items that we can't get off of a state contract.
So the bottom line is, I'd like to say we're on time and under budget, but all I can tell you is we're sort of on time-ish, a little bit later than we'd like to be, but we are still under budget. So
We are still under budget.
we are hoping to finish on budget. That's the goal. Yes, Alex.
I also just want to remind everybody that we will not be needing to go into that 230,000, I think, or 260,000 that the board authorized the building committee to have for the riding rink. That if we
That's correct. Assuming that finances do not get worse or we don't hit some other ledge problem or something like that before the job is over, we anticipate being able to absorb the $260,000 you authorized us to spend in addition to the full amount. We hopefully will be able to subsume that within the amount that we've spent. So we will not go over it, and with any luck, we will hopefully not go over and have to deal with that. So it's a pretty good thing if it continues in this way. But you know, knock on wood. There being no action items, unless someone has an objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned at 8:42 p.m. Thank you very much.